Hi there, guys. As I said in my last video, I had plans to pretty much do a quick look at my Mortal Kombat comic book collection. As you can see, it's very shy. There's actually a whole lot of Mortal Kombat comic books out there. I plan to hopefully someday collect them all because they're relatively inexpensive, so they're easy to collect. The first comics I'll take you guys through is the Raiden and Kano series. Basically, the Raiden and Kano series is my favorite out of the Mortal Kombat comics that I have read so far. Without giving away any of the story, basically what happens is Raiden devises a plan to take down Shao Kahn. There's an ancient sword that, when wielded by I guess you could say it a reformed sinner, if you will, when wielded by a reformed sinner, will give the wielder godlike powers. So Raiden begins to search Earthrealm for the most evil mortal on Earth. And of course, that person is Kano. So he makes a deal with Kano that he can use this sword and save Earth by destroying Shao Kahn. And in doing so, he will purify his soul. Needless to say, however, Kano is a very treacherous person, and when given godlike power, some really awesome shit goes down. It's a 3-part series. It's 1, 2, 3. And it's definitely worth picking up if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, because the story itself is really interesting and shows a lot of character. So moving on. The next comic in my collection is this. It's Mortal Kombat issue 0. This particular comic, if you excuse me, this comic is very, very shallow. Essentially what it is a collection of 8-page introductions to each of the characters. While there are some really, really cool things that happen in this comic, for instance, right here, Sub-Zero says to Scorpion, "I thought you were dead. I thought I killed you." And Scorpion replies, "You may have killed me, but you didn't finish me," which is, of course, some great cheesy stuff. And they have a lot of that great cheese in here. But all in all, this comic is very shallow. It's not all that impressive. The drawings are really beautiful, but other than that, it's really not all that interesting. So, as far as this comic is concerned, if you aren't a Mortal Kombat collector and you just like comic books, this is definitely not for you. It's not that great. But if you are a Mortal Kombat collector, then I say it's a must-have because, you know, it's a special issue. One other thing to note is this company. They made controllers, and I was reading their ad and reading about their controllers and thinking, why haven't I heard of these controllers? Why weren't they more popular? And then I saw the name of the company. The company is actually named STD. That is right. Their name is STD, as in sexually transmitted diseases. So STD Entertainment clearly would not succeed because in the 90s, STDs were a pretty big deal. Putting that away. Moving on to this comic. Now, man, this is an intense book. This is Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, issue number 1. And as it says right here, proclaiming proudly, 64-page special. This comic really does not bullshit around whatsoever. honestly, you open it up and it's one humongous fight. It's a 4-page fight with all the Mortal Kombat 2 characters and Sonya and Kano. It's not entirely clear to me why they're fighting, because clearly this goes at the end of a much longer story, because it makes a lot of reference to the other comics. However, the art in here is really interesting, and the sub-story of this is Raiden has a book that pretty much gives somebody godlike power. However, in order to get the godlike power, you must solve all the riddles in the book. And as you can see, the book is pretty thick, so it's a lot of riddles. In the end of it, Goro ends up solving the riddle, and Goro gets godlike powers. And I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but let's just say we get some really awesome alliances, if you will, very unexpected alliances that make for a really cool ending. This is a must-have for a Mortal Kombat collector. Its art is amazing, its story is really cool, and the action is just out of this world. A lot of really cheesy dialogue, just like you would expect from a good Mortal Kombat comic book. I don't know why, but it seems like in all the MK comic books, people always talk in the third person. That would be like me saying Michael V does this, Michael V does that. And finally, out of my collection is this, Mortal Kombat US Special Forces. And honestly, it's a 40-page special, woo! And honestly, I've never been all that impressed with this book, mainly because it has nothing to do with Mortal Kombat, except for the fact it has Kano and Sonya in it. All these other characters I don't recognize, but that's okay, because it's a 2-part special. Maybe someday I'll get the second part, but honestly, it's not all that great. It has Kano in it too. But there's nothing I can that's really memorable from this. And a lot of kind of pulls away from Mortal Kombat's kind of mystical Asian feel, and like pushes you into kind of like a Rambo film. And while Rambo's okay, it's just, you know, as far as Mortal Kombat, that's not what I want to see from it. So I would say Mortal Kombat Special Forces is mostly a pass. So anyway, so that's my collection so far of Mortal Kombat related comic books. We got US Special Forces, Mortal Kombat Issue 0, Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, and then my favorite so far, the 3-part series, Raiden vs. Kano, 1, 2, and 3. One more thing to be said about Raiden vs. Kano is they can't seem to get their art in order. For starters, the cover art's beautiful. I mean, that's gorgeous. But they can't seem to get their art in order. It seems like half of the comic book looks like this, and the other half of the comic book looks like this. As you can see, the art styles are dramatically different, and they do this over and over again throughout the 3-issue special. So like, it will have this really detailed, a lot of high contrast, non-traditional comic book art, and then it will flip back into a closer, more traditional thing. But hell, that's Malibu Comics for you. So there it is. That's a quick detail of my Mortal Kombat comic book collection. I hope to be getting more. If any of you guys have any, you can just send them my way if you want to get rid of them. But so there it is, my Mortal Kombat comic collection. If you guys have any questions or would like to see any like more up close detailed of any of these comic books, just go ahead, shoot me a message here on YouTube, and I will be happy to do that for you guys. Thank you very much.